Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, especially after lunch, where I assume everyone is feeling a little bit sleepier than they were earlier. As we just said, our topic today is, can agentic AI unlock internal corporate data? We've got a great set of panelists to discuss that subject. I want us to really focus on the two core bits of that conversation. What does agentic AI mean? And what is specific about internal corporate data which makes it particularly elusive for agents? Before we get into the topic, I'll just ask my panelists to briefly introduce themselves, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Christina Yan Zhang, CEO of the Metaverse Institute. We do advisory work for the United Nations, governments, investors, and corporates on frontier technology. Thank you.
Hello, I'm also Christina Chen, CEO of First AI Group. We are UK's #1 AI adoption company. So what we do is when companies have decided to invest in AI technologies, they've bought the licenses, flipped the switch and realized no one's using it, that's when we come in. Or if they're more organized, we'll come in earlier. So we provide adoption services, or we provide directly on-demand adoption managers who are skilled up on change management and AI into corporates. Here to talk about very exciting things like AI agents to keep everyone awake after the lunch break.
Yes, that's what we want.
I'm Morné Rousseau. I'm a Chief AI Officer at Kyriba. And I have the distinct pleasure to actually, in this role, look at the external, the customer side, our product, and the supporting services around that, but also the internal processes side and also the people and adoption side. So really excited to talk to you today about the topic around agentic AI and corporate data.
Taner Akçok. I'm working at Deutsche Bank as a CTO of Corporate Bank, Germany, and also I'm a global head of API banking. So I'm responsible from the platforms, API, AI platforms, data streaming platforms, and also enabling AI use cases.
Thank you all. As you can see, we have a very diverse set of perspectives, which I think will be very useful in figuring out the thornier bits of our conversation. So I wanted to start by setting the terms really well. What do we really mean when we say agentic? Enthusiasts will tell us that this is the next big thing after chatbots and all the Gen AI hype. This is what everyone should be thinking when they think about the future of AI. But let's be clear, what does it mean for an agent to be one? And what does it mean in a corporate setting? Morné, should we start with you?
Yes, I think, at least from my perspective, is that I like the analogy of when we look at assistants. So a lot of us have heard that term, and if you see it in the realm of a movie star, where I might have an assistant, and I would tell that assistant precisely what I want. I want only the pink M&Ms, and I want that type of water. Off you go and do it. And then the agent is like an agent that's looking at better roles for me, looking out for me. And I can give some direction, but then I can actually let them go. And they will go and do what they need to do and report back to me and give me the results, better roles, better work. So that's the main difference, if you think about that in simplistic terms.
Right. Taner, do you have something to add to this?
Actually, I mean, it's a very good definition. So it's an assistant which is more integrated with many systems and at the same time more automated and autonomous. So this is how the agents are. And also, for maybe corporate data part, the agents are the new instruments to enable the data. So what does it mean, enabling or getting the best out of the data? So in old times, getting the best out of the data was just getting some numbers or some insights out of that for monitoring purposes. And then it became more prescriptive way, that with the dashboards, with analysis that we were able to deep dive, create some correlations out of the number. And maybe in the last 10 years, it's becoming more and more predictive with AIs and machine learning. And now with these AI agents, it's even moving it to one step ahead, which means that it's being assistive and actionable stuff that you can get out of the data. So
right. Christina Chen, do you want to add a little bit more on the technological side of it? What has really changed for us to be able to talk about agents and not just chatbots and dashboards on the tech side of things?
Well, it's really how machine learning has evolved over the years, and we're talking about AI, but really, this audience will know that AI has been around for a long time. I think there's also a marketing speak here, which is all got to be very careful of.
We want to cut that.
Yes, everything is an agent these days, and if it's an agent, it's hot, right? So there's also ISVs, technology providers putting out local no-code solutions, which has its place as well. I think a lot of what we're talking about from a technical perspective, this panel is talking about quite complicated or complex use case of agents. And really, agent from our perspective is not only surfacing the data, but being able to make decisions on data or making actions on the data. And the level of decision making by the agent versus the human is the level of agenticness. There's a whole spectrum, and it's both terrifying and exciting to have agents making decisions on your data, but that's kind of where we see it today.
And Christina, where would you set that threshold of what counts as agentic and what doesn't?
I think it's really about how autonomous they are, and we always say we need to keep human in the loop, which is absolutely important. But maybe at this moment, a lot of agentic AI discussion is remaining in the form of two-dimensional. So we're talking about text, image, video, code, etc. But actually, if you're looking at some of the latest developments in the field of AI generation, is actually starting to get more into three-dimensional, especially if you're looking at the recent talk by Jensen Huang from NVIDIA in GTC, and he's talking about how they are able to use AI to create 3D virtual world at scale in a way which was never easy, faster, and cheaper before. And their main utility is actually looking at using this kind of AI-generated 3D virtual environment to train physical AI, robotics, especially humanoid robotics, which is widely considered as the next biggest thing. And Jensen Huang basically said that's $50 trillion business opportunities in the years ahead. So I guess when we are talking about agentic AI, we should not only looking at 2D version, which is quite mainstream at this moment, but maybe increasingly more into this kind of hybrid world of both physical world and digital world coming together for autonomous driving, for robotics, and all other kind of sophisticated simulation at scale.
Well, that's really getting us into the sci-fi world here. But for now, we're really thinking about internal corporate data, and I'm sure that we'll have robots doing some of the driving and many other aspects of our life soon. But I think that it's best for now to focus on how these agents actually help us with the data. So let's move to that. How do they engage with internal corporate data? Tanner, should we start with you? What is the usual flow, the most generic way in which an AI agent would actually, in practice, probably the next year or two, interact with internal corporate data?
So it's actually a very wide topic, but maybe to just scratch the surface a little bit.
Let's do that.
The agentic AI is not a miracle that you can just purchase or implement to your company and then suddenly everything is going to turn perfectly to autonomous agents. So it's actually a process. And one of the biggest mistakes into the market is starting to try to build an agentic AI. But what is recommended is starting with the assistance, and more than the implementation, it's also first making your data, internal corporate data, available for this assistance and agentic AI world. They call it indexing layer. So which means that can be your EPM software, or that can be your ERP, accounting, or your even internal Confluence data, PDF, XMLs, and so on, that you can tokenize and embedding them for the vector stores, which can be usable for your AI solutions.
Okay, so that's the prerequisite.
That's a prerequisite. Yes.
Data sorted in I like to call it a hygienic way, have
True.
high data hygiene, and then what do we do?
Correct. And what is important over there is, I'm not saying that first invest multi-year data lake projects. I'm talking about the data puddles, but more structured and strategy-driven data puddles that you can train specific agents for specific tasks. And then the second thing is how you will be enabling this data for your existing decision makings. So, which means that after you feed your assistants or agents, how are you going to measure the accuracy of the answers? With the golden questions maybe, and all these kind of things, preventing the hallucinations, because feeding AI with the data is like, you can create even Frankenstein out of that, which can assist you in a wrong way. That's why, building also proper governance into the organization, like which data are classified as an internal or strictly confidential or can be used for internal use cases, which of them are for the external. So as a summary, you need a proper data governance model, data enhancement and data centralization strategy, and at the same time, a platform that you can put this data over there to train your agents.
That's very useful. Perhaps we can try and think of some examples that can really illustrate in our minds how does it actually work in practice. Christina, you work with many companies. What are some best examples of agents being currently deployed or already in use that you can give to really help us understand what does that really mean?
Yeah, I'll give a journey of how they got to the AI piece. The agent piece. So we work with a business that is producing a lot of reports. So they are a consulting business, very specialized in a specific engineering utility sector. So how they got to it is like many of us here. They started using some fairly sort of general workflow AI. So in this case, Microsoft Copilot, everyone started using it. That was the best way to actually get people to think about use cases, because one of the things about agents is about the use case. It's not about what technology, fancy technology is what use case comes that they solve. So how they started was, let's just get everyone use the basic, right? Write emails, get your team meetings, transcribe using AI. But just from there, they suddenly had use cases coming from bottom up, right, from the organizations. And then specifically in this case, to answer your question, was they saw a specific bottleneck where certain reports were taking very long from very human experts to produce. And that was pulling data out of both internal and external data. It both structured and unstructured, and it would be in the old days would take some automation to do. You can, but it only gets you so far. So really what we started looking at with them is building a specific agent for this senior consultant almost. His name is Paul. So we say, well, you can almost build an agent Paul, right? That's sort of replicating him, his thinking, where he's pulling the information from. So this is just a very, very small use case, not even sort of in a bank and, with millions of users yet. It's a very specific use case where they actually came from bottom up. The use case, it wasn't a big AI strategy, etc. And when an agent Paul is used, then we now work with them to scale to the 5 different poles in that team, and then it will go across different parts of the organizations as well. And that's how agents that we've seen, sort of a live case right now, how it's been built and used.
This makes a lot of sense. So it really is a type of an evolution in the implementation, starting with the data hygiene, as I like to call it, going through some of the simpler uses of Gen AI, and then really evolving into that sort of agentic use. Maureen, do you agree with that vision? And
yeah, I think we at Kyriba, there's 2 sides. Naturally, I've mentioned that I sort of go across the whole business. So we have our product side. And a key thing for us there is, being a company that's been full SaaS solution for 20 years, we're saying, listen, we need to democratize AI, make sure that the safety, the protection, the governance around the data, and for our customers, that's their internal data. So that's how that relates. So we're providing a platform that will give them all of that capability in the safety that they're used to within their platform. and naturally giving them over time the capability to train their own AI agents on their specific use cases. And in that case, what we've chosen to do is to co-innovate with our customers. As we've mentioned earlier, don't build the hammer. We know what the hammer is. Now we're looking for the nails. But we want it to be valuable for the customers. So that's a key thing that we're doing internally. What's interesting in it, and it links on to the cases, is we opted for a platform called Dust, which is a startup company in France, which you can build assistants on. And what we've done is that we've started to empower our internal users by training so that they start to understand what prompt engineering is, what this capability is, and get them going on the data that we had. And what we then did is have a very active feedback loop when the data quality is not there of the users, so that we can start to isolate what's good enough, because in some instances, good enough is good enough. Right. And then other instances, you need to get into that data and make sure that, listen, to take it to the next level, we need to fix the data. And we have constant demo days, which people that built agents would demo to the organization what they've built so everybody can learn. And it really sparked that innovation, not just internally, but even of our organization talking to our customers. They're thinking more AI first. And I think that leads us back to that, is that when you start to do it, get off zero today. Start to do it. Sometimes good enough is better than not doing it at all. And then you're going to lean into the areas where perhaps the data is really challenging, but it's going to give you that return on investment that was talked about earlier in the sessions, because you're going to focus on the areas where your return is there. So.
Right. Well, while we are on return on investment, what is one way in which companies have been trying to do this to justify the original investment? We have a public of many CFOs. They will be asking that question before any else when someone pitches them an agent. Yeah. Christina, do you want to take this?
Oh, that sounds like a really challenging question.
Is it? We can share the responsibility afterwards.
Okay, I will see what I can do. I guess we need to have a very balanced approach. AI is very hot now, and we are probably somewhere on its peak in terms of hype. But how much value it actually really delivers for the CFO on a daily basis is a very crucially important question. And based on a lot of interaction we had with different UN agency, big corporates, it seems like there is constant debate or discussion between the CIO and the CFO. Because the CIO will say, this is going to be the next biggest thing. If we don't jump in now, we are going to lose XYZ money in next year, whatever. And then CFO will say, show me the money now. I want to see the result now. Or quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, we want to see the results. So how can you actually making baby steps to prove value for investment in quarter 1, 2, 3, 4 is crucially important to bring your CFO onto the journey. And it will be the same with lots of different department heads, because unless it's really proof either reducing costs or increase productivity without cutting too many head accounts, because no one wants to be employed, right?
We're going to get there.
Okay,
We're
cool.
going to get there.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to add to the return on investment?
Well, I can give a bit of insight. At least we've been through a cycle with the Dust platform is for productivity. So it's not, I would say, it's assistant-based, but it's starting to get to an agent capability where you can start to execute. And what we've seen is, because it's productivity-based, there's a few levers that we could do some assumptions on. We actually used the AI model to help me to build the business case, was that deferred hires. So what that means, and we will talk about the capability, and we actually heard it within AXA, where she's saying, listen, I have 200 hires, we can't hire. That's the challenges we're going to face. It's going to get worse. So what's happening is that deferred hires means that we can start to offload some of this task to my agent, which you should see as an individual, because they have that identity and accountability. There was a question there as well. And we saw that there's a significant deferred hire the customer satisfaction was hugely impacted. The satisfaction of our people was up. So the work-life balance is increasing. And when we did the calculation, I actually don't want to say it even because it sounds a bit weird, but months,
we want to hear it all.
3-4 months, and that investment was back. When you actually looked at the amount of hours that was saved per individual, and then the retention, the customer retention, and everything is soft measures, but quite impactful.
That's very interesting.
I have something to add. So, because we see this quite a lot on the ROI case, and a lot of CFOs come to us and said, actually, we never had a budget for AI. This is also new. I mean, when we made the budget, it wasn't there. And one of the key challenges is the ROI calculation is, again, no one has done it before. I don't know how long is a piece of string. I don't know where the result's going to come from. And a lot of the productivity measures, X number of hours, number of manpower, etc., we cannot realize really on our P&L. And some of the best practices we've seen across the different projects is they start small on finding use cases that can accelerate revenue, generate revenue. So if you can find a few small things, doesn't have to be small use cases that can get the revenue generating going faster, whether that's get your consultants more billable or whatever that is, that unlocks a lot of the first pilots. And then you can start getting more ROI calculations or conversations around the bigger productivity drive across. And one of the main, I guess a tip also is looking at the role CFO plays in this whole AI strategy, because quite often, as you say, the CEO is saying, go, 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 go. Rightfully, there is need more analysis, more checkpoints before investments are made. But we are now needing to shift our mindset as to we're buying ready-made solutions. Mm-hmm. There's a mindset shift as to you kind of have to co-create. You kind of have to go on a journey when you go down AI. It's just not just AI, a lot of technological changes right now and transformation right now is you have to be in the mindset from a CFO perspective that you're going down that journey. Yep. You may not know from the get-go what your defined bucket of budget is from the get-go, and that's a way for the CFO to really work with business and lean into that.
Christina, you wanted to add to this?
There is another really important thing I think all of us really care about is how to deal with the unstructured data which spread out, across the organization, which is often called dark data, because they are not really, analyzed. They are just stay there for a long time, stay in the cloud, especially. And I think the figures by the World Economic Forum is companies and organizations worldwide generate about nearly 2 trillions of dark data every year, which will be the equivalent of CO2 emission for 3 million times flying from London to New York, which is not terribly environmentally friendly. No. So I guess how can we potentially use agentic AI in the future to looking at, extract value and insight from unstructured data? That would be very interesting. And there is a very powerful case study reported by Swiss Reinsurance, which is one of the world's largest reinsurance company in the world. What they have been doing is they actually using AI to looking at unstructured data, and they identify more than 25% of improvements in the field of loss ratio, which is quite significant. So I guess maybe the future direction is, in addition to looking at improved efficiency and also reducing costs, how can agentic AI to help us to bring more value of the mass amount of dark data in our organization can be very promising.
I think that's a big question.
I just want to add to that. I think what we've experienced, to hook onto that, when we opened up the safe way for people in our organization to build the assistant, the agents, that data started to unlock, because that's the individuals that know it's there, but they didn't use it in the way they could because the technology wasn't there. So when we created the safe space where corporate data can be used in an agent assistant way, it's unbelievable how that unlocked. We started with 50 users, we're now at 600. And we're unlocking all, and most of that's unstructured documentation, presentations, all of this unstructured data that's now available. And now natively, they're starting to form groups to say, how do we get our data better? Because I want my assistant to be more accurate. So the teams, and that's the key thing, takes ownership of their data again, because they are the experts. That's the human side, to start to understand how do we need to structure these things to get the value to make our lives easier. And that was a practical way, and we're seeing it day by day how that's growing. And the asks that we have for our vendor to unlock new links to new systems that's multi-system, like the ERPs and the CRMs, is showing how our thought pattern as an organization is changing around our data.
Yeah. Can you give an example of how this actually
I can give an example.
Yes.
So actually for the return of investment point of view, I mean, if we need to cover it also with the structured and unstructured data, for the CFOs, the market or the current technologies are always more predictive and recommended way. I mean, it's recommending some actions or it's recommending some products, but with agentic AI, for example, when you connect your structured and unstructured data from your ERP, EPM, your accounting, your personnel systems, you are able to manage your liquidity, and also you can orchestrate the best out of the financial products and services. Imagine you're a CFO of a construction company, and what you do is you are getting some procurements. You are going into the tendering processes, and then some mini procurements are happening over there. And you have to manage your liquidity very carefully to be able to get more and more tenders, more and more procurements, to be a general contractor for more constructions. Then with agentic AI, you are able to ask or model immediately like what kind of financial products for account receivables that you will get end of the project that you can finance immediately and use it for more procurements to constant grow, and what is your sweet spot, so you can calculate these kind of complex models. That's why the direction is going from the recommendation world to an assisting world, that you can see the outputs and consequences of the potential decisions that you can make. And if you agree on some level of risk appetite or some level of decision freedom, you can even delegate these decisions to the agentic AI. This is we'll add one more small thing. That's important because, especially for financial services, not only in financial services, actually, in every hyper-personalized solutions into the market, there's a big gap with the real human behavior and the technological offerings. What does it mean? It means that when I go to a restaurant, they just look at me, and I sit down over there, and I order a food, I eat as much as I want, and then I pay the bill. They don't ask my financial account, or do I have a money, The relation starts with a trust because of the unstructured data, which is part of human being, like from the eyes you understand it immediately. But in technological offerings, it's complete opposite.
Right.
You start with questions like, do you have enough money? Are you trustworthy enough? Or do you have risk? And with agentic AIs, I think this gap is going to be closed.
Right. I wanted to follow up on the previous point about the way in which agentic AI will change the profile of finance team. Does it mean that we have fewer analysts, more managers? What does it mean for the interaction between human and AI? More, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I think at least our view from Kyriba, my personal view, is that it's not all doomsday. What we will see is, I believe in augmentation. I believe that it's, we had a Tony Stark example. I actually have a presentation where I have the Avengers as well. I think it is a superpower. What we will find is there will be new roles, like mine. Chief AI Officer didn't exist. And we will find that there might be roles that cease to exist because people are being rolled into more positions where it makes sense for them to govern across what the AI does. I do believe when you look at the profession, but not just the financial profession, I think it goes across everything. There's some key capabilities that one need to go and learn. One is the prompt engineering. How do you talk to this new worker? And I want to emphasize that this is not a function, drop-down menu function agent. No. This is like having someone on your team that is going to take the accountability of that an individual would take. The only difference is it's not a person. And what that means is in the systems, you build the same accountability level for that piece of technology that's doing the work versus the human doing this work. And that does change thinking, where you would do KPIs for your agentic teams members and for your human team members. And you need to measure both of them if they are doing what they're supposed to do in your reimagined workflows.
Right.
So that's a key change, is that they have to change the way that we work, and then what will happen is we will be pushed up a layer within the finance space where and I'm getting to the question. Sorry, it's a little bit long, but so it's the where we do the prompting. The second thing, this is now that data storytelling. That's the other skill that needs to be developed. How do you start to articulate what was now delivered by this agentic workforce of yours? And the third one is, how do you then unpack AI, how it got to the answer? And in closing, it's about, today I can take my Excel and I can explain to anyone in my organization how I got to this number. The new skills that will develop is that you have the same comfort level to talk to whoever in your organization and tell them the story of your data, your number you got to, and explain to them how you got to it. It might be, now we're talking about VLOOKUPs and you know, what's our formula. Tomorrow you're going to talk about, listen, this was machine learning, XGBoost, and this is how it works high level, and this is why I'm confident in this number, or it was generative AI. This is how I know how accurate it is, and this is why, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, you can trust this number. And that's a new skill set.
Right.
Maybe one thing in addition to that. So in the previous session, the Stephanie from AXA, she also mentioned that AI, I mean, people can also make mistakes, and AIs can make mistakes as well. And what we do is we are building new processes constantly on top of it and on top of it, and also creating new roles to control those processes, you know, to be more accurate and preventing the mistakes. And the AI agents are not the AGI, you know, I mean, who is able to do everything that a human can make. So the AI agents are more specific agents which are autonomous but in a very specific models. That's why, you know, right now in the market, even there are being experiments on multi-agent ecosystems that, you know, how these agents are going to be interacted. And as mentioned, like in the old times, maybe we were visiting the websites and collecting some data to Excel, you know, like as a manual thing. Then we created cron jobs, you know, and then we created the APIs and some integrations. And now we are inventing the agentic AI, which we will use it as a tool for the next level that we can create more and more value. So that's why instead of replacing the existing people's work, it's gonna more evolve the way of we are doing the things.
Right, and the focus has been on skills. We just need to start implementing different type, or looking for different type of skills and upskilling when using agents. You wanted to add something, Christina?
Yeah, so one of the latest projects we have been working on is actually for the United Nations, looking at how AI can innovate the tourism industry, especially with a special focus on the job replacements and what kind of new jobs should be coming up. And the conclusion we have got is it's still too early to tell, you know, the real-world impact of AI or agentic AI for the global labor force. And the one thing I really want to highlight is if you go to any conference talking about AI's impact on jobs, the most frequently talking about things is what kind of new skills we need to upgrade our existing labor force on. But that's only perhaps 50% of the equation. because you can always train our staff with new skills. But if there is no creation of new jobs and new employments, we are going to be in trouble. So I guess for every single one of us who are leading, like innovation at different organizations, in addition to skills, we need to also ask what kind of new industries, new employments, and new opportunities could we create at our own individual departments or industries or organizations moving forward, or else in the end, we can all be on universal basic income talking about happy skills for the next generations, which is not going to help anyone, right?
Hopefully we won't get quite there.
I'm sure we are not going to be like that because we are very smart people, right?
No, I think also, just to add to that, I don't believe the reason AI won't take your jobs is that we as a species want to grow constantly. We want to grow our businesses, we want to innovate, bring new things. And if you look at GDP in its simplest form, it's humans, so population, it is productivity, and it's cheap money. Cheap money is gone. Population we have a challenge with. So we're looking at productivity. So if we would stop and say, as a human, we would not invent anything more, no company will grow. And even if we take AI away, the businesses will go down, people will lose jobs, and things will get smaller. Just because we are pushing forward and the people will not be there, this is why AI is so important. Because, like we said, the 200 people they're struggling to hire, it's going to get worse. But the great thing is, the innovation will always be there. And like with the Industrial Revolution, if I was someone that used a pickaxe, I perhaps lost my job to a back actor, but I found something new, and business will always innovate around that in a natural way. I don't think we have to worry too much about that. We're very creative. We take the best and the newest tools through centuries, and we invent around that. And we will do that with AI as well. But it is crucial, because if we want GDP to go up and we want our standard of living to stay the same or get better, we need to solve the productivity problem.
I hope you're very right here. Christina.
I'll just say something very practical. We've seen one of the businesses helping to upskill their entire workforce upper level in AI, and what they've done is put in, we work with them to put in a help desk for them, right? So think about when you first got laptops, when everyone first got internet, etc. So you could bring a laptop to almost like the Genius Bar in Apple stores, etc. Is having that help desk and that drop-in sessions that was by far the most effective way to engage with employees, getting them upskilled versus sending them down in a training session.
Right.
Something to share.
We have a couple of more minutes left. I'll ask the panelists to give us their final thoughts on what we should do with AI agents and internal data. But in the meantime, could the audience just think about questions that they have for our panelists? So, Tanner, let's probably start with you. What are the really big things that companies should be doing now in preparation of the next big thing, agents, for internal corporate data? Just the three basic steps that you'd have.
Sure. First, instead of extreme, huge, and long-term investments like 3 years data lake projects or, building an AI infrastructure stuff, coming up with the use cases with data puddles and experimenting the things that they can grow. And the second thing is positioning AI agents properly within the organization as an understanding level, like what is assistance, what is a semi-pilot, what's a co-pilot, what is an AI agent. These terminologies must be clear for the whole organization. And the third thing, the last one, is for the CFOs, instead of just picturing a one miracle agent which can do all CFO job, coming up with more specific stuff like, I need an assistant for the reporting and financial planning. I need an assistant for the forecasting that I can brainstorm on liquidity or, on ARs or different stuff. Or I need an assistant, to optimize my tax all around the world. So these kind of use cases can be more helpful.
So we will need some customization. This is actually one of the questions that we had. Do we need a large degree of customization when we discuss agents? Yes, we do. Do the others have to add points?
I'll say one thing.
Yes.
Create a safe environment for people to use your data and innovate on top of. That is magic. And that will solve some of the learning, the adoption, the ideation. It will spill over into your customer side. It's probably, if you can do one thing, get off zero, get them a safe space, give them access to the data in a tool that's easy to use, and that will drive adoption from the root level up.
Christine and Christina, do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I also want to just share one practical example we've seen on one of the projects. They call it, they've built what they call a agent landing strip. So there is a lot of talk about there will be millions, if not billions, of agents being built by employees and by IT centrally. Where do you host them, etc. So to the point about how do you unlock this panel, how do you unlock data with AI is creating that landing strip. What that means is in this company, both technically, what that means in an infrastructure to host it, etc., and maintain it, but also governance-wise, who is going to approve, what's the responsible AI use, etc. That landing strip concept was very useful for this particular organization to get people buy-in and start experimenting and start putting things out there into the landing strip. So some of them will then deploy and scale.
Right. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, of course. I think BCG argue that based on their research, actually up to 32% of companies they surveyed are planning to incorporate agentic AI into their existing strategy and implementation this year. So it is coming, no matter what. And my second point is, as a Marvel Studio movie fan, I really like the idea of Tony Stark have a Jarvis. Basically a really, convenient AI assistant to support him pretty much 24/7. And the interesting fact is Jarvis is short of just a rather very intelligent system. And Tony Stark has to be a billionaire to have something as awesome as that. But the beauty of agentic AI is actually, perhaps within the next 12 months, every single one of us can start to experiment, having an agentic AI working alongside us on a daily basis and see how it can help us to streamline areas where, we can maybe work a little bit less, play a little bit more, and eat a little bit more delicious food. Why not? Drop down. Everyone's happy.
I really like that. Let's pause our conversation here and perhaps take some questions from the audience. Who has something for our panels today? No questions?
Yes, I'll dare.
Please.
My name is Isabel, and from Experian. Obviously, it's data. But what I would like to understand, especially coming to this, is that, everyone is using AI or experimenting with AI. But for the finance team, the bottom line, the importance is how do you show it into the P&L, right? So you've got operational efficiencies that is being showing in efforts. There will be probably potential product values. So how would you transition that, and so that you can then make it obvious that this will actually impact your P&L?
Well, at least what I can say is that future deferred hiring, that's a real thing, because normally it's scattered into your organization anyway. So if you're going to say, listen, I would have hired 5 people, that KPI just need to be something you agree upon, and then you can measure that to say what's the impact in reduction. Then if you measure NPS score of your customer, and if you measure your NPS of your people internal, that's hard measures. That has an impact, and there's a cost in churn of your people internal and your customers, and that rolls very nicely into your P&Ls. The key thing is just to say, listen, this is the touch points, and this is how we're going to measure the impact of this so that you can match it up into your P&L. But there's quite a few things that's not just soft measures that you can actually link very tangibly into your P&L.
But one thing for P&L point of view, I agree. 3 main things: new revenue generation, risk mitigation, and cost optimization. But for P&L, it's clear. But for the company valuations, it's still not clear, because you are not paying any wages to AI agents. And that's why, how are you going to calculate your intellectual capital? Even in the acquisition cases, the goodwill is still a big question that markets should be careful that our existing AI agent-based companies are undervalued or overvalued from the intellectual capital point of view.
That's right. We don't pay them wages, but there is clearly a cost to agentic AI. And I think that some of our other panels, I think, in fact, the next one might touch on this. So please join me in applauding our panelists. Thank you very much.